I've been using Wordpress, a blogging site, for the last year, a couple of years actually, within my teaching. And what the purpose is to try and get the students to engage with the material that they're covering in class and whether or not they're finding it easy to follow or not. So I've asked them to follow a procedure of before the lecture, looking at the timetable, seeing what they expect. So we get them to do a pre-lecture, intranets, wikis and podcasts. So one of the sessions, what are they expecting from it? So once they've gone to the session, then it might only be a couple of sentences that they give before, but afterwards a post-lecture blog. Did they get what they expected? How did they enjoy it? What did they not enjoy for whatever reason? We used this in a second assessment in the module, but they used all 12 weeks of teaching. They had to post every week, or the aim was for them to post every week. I marked 8 of those 12 weeks, but they got feedback on every single post that they put in. So I looked at them all the time, either on my phone, on my Kindle, on my iPad, or in the computer if I was at my desk. So really, really accessible. Some of the feedback that the student gave me face-to-face was fantastic, but actually in the blogs they told me an awful lot more. Sometimes it was the lecture title didn't make any relevance to them when they were looking at what was covered, or they didn't think that what it said was going to be what we actually covered within the classes. Sometimes it was about interaction with the academic, things that they enjoyed or didn't enjoy, and that was really, really useful to get for us all individually, but also for the module to look at how different teaching styles worked. We weren't assessing them on whether or not they'd learnt the material as such. We were assessing them and how they address their learning style. So sometimes a lecture is not there to be examined. It's there to encourage them to develop as an independent student or a researcher. So in this case, they got the opportunity to talk without referencing, without having to back everything up. And that was really, really beneficial. I've had a couple of students who have set up their own sites now and they continue to blog on their professional field. Others who've set it up in their work to put up videos that they've created on how to do a particular process, lab process for example. A haematology student is now doing this in her work and has a weekly blog post, some of which are videoed, some of which are just written, but checking to make sure people have followed their CPD, their training for example, and have actually engaged with the negatives. Some of the things that we asked the students to consider was whether they'd enjoyed the session. Rather than just saying, no, that was rubbish, we wanted to know why, what they could gain from that. So we're encouraging them to reflect on the things that they enjoyed and why they enjoyed them really helped them to identify their strengths and weaknesses. So really highlighting the things that they could do well and that they could take into a job or into an application, for example. If you're not enjoying something, writing it down is the first scope to actually becoming mindful and thinking, I can't just feel negative about this, I need to approach it and tackle it and try and turn it around. The students really did enjoy it. Free writing is not something we encourage at university, and yet it's a great way of sorting out your thinking, your thoughts. And so I think from the student perspective, it encourages them to really become mindful in their own practices and reflective of what they've learned, where they maybe need to learn a bit more, and to direct them into that, and also to make sure that they're getting formative feedback to make sure that they're following the right direction through the material. So in the videos, in the vodcasts, we made it as open to them as they wanted in terms of how they could put it together. We did find that the WordPress accounts were being used on computers, on telephones, on iPads, Kindles, you name it. They used every technology under the sun. When they were doing their videos, the similar situation happens. A lot used their iPhones to record them and then used iMovie, for example, to filter them out. Some used editing software that they downloaded online, and a lot of them went up to the library to use the Apple suite up there and use the iMovie on there. Some of them would arrange to get some IT support, but the majority of them didn't. They went onto YouTube and learned that way, which was fantastic. And actually in their blogs, it was one of the things they felt most empowered by, something they'd never considered being able to do that they now knew. And I know a couple of the more mature students, their children are incredibly impressed by how much technology their mums and dads have been able to achieve. So yeah, it was very interactive, lots and lots of different opportunities for them, and they really grabbed it with both hands. So 3 words thinking about my blogging. I would say the first one would be engagement. Because if the students don't engage, you've got an automatic feed forward every single week to make sure that they start and they know that it's reflected in their marks if they don't. So engagement's definitely the first one. And the second is probably reflection. So rather than just listening and thinking, right, done that, sorted, tick the box, they're actually having to reflect on what they've learnt, and think about what they've learnt from that process as well as from the material. And the third one, I'd say, is accessibility. No matter where I was, where I got stuck on a train, for example, I had access and I could do some work on them. The immediacy of the feedback was what the students loved. And if they reacted and I was online, I reacted again. So they probably got more feedback than they probably expected. And the feedback on the feedback was great.